This is Life Talk, and I'm Mark Crutcher, president of Life Dynamics. Joining me once again are the usual suspects, my loyal assistant here at Life Dynamics, Renee Hobbs.
Hello.
And, of course, lurking next to her is Destiny Herndon de la Rosa.
She gets loyal, and I'm lurking.
You're lurking.
I feel like we need to come
like
up
an
with
alligator
something better.
In the Everglades. They
Okay.
kind of lurk there waiting for a victim to wander by. All right. Now we got that out of the way. Lots of things going on in the pro-life movement right now. One of the things, of course, we continue to see the fallout from the tapes on the baby parts thing. And we're getting a lot of calls from people who know that we're the ones who started that and want to know where our information is. And, you know, it's right there on the website. But I want to remind people that they can go to prolifeamerica.com, and there's a little yellow button up at the top that says, projects and
reports.
Projects and reports. And you can see the baby parts marketing thing there. And it's pretty extensive. You can spend hours.
The price list, the interview, everything's on there.
Everything's on there. And also the 2020 piece.
Yes.
And then all the things that happened to us at the congressional investigation level. So anyway, if you just go to prolifeamerica.com, go to that little yellow button up at the top. I'm sure you've been there and hung on every word, right?
Yeah, it's my browser homepage.
Is it? Good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We're going to be talking here in a little bit about this situation with the pro-aborts going berserk over the Doritos ad at the Super Bowl because, you know, I mean, it's not really that big a deal. This is exactly what you expect from these people. But it goes to a bigger issue that we want to talk about here in a little bit. But first, I want to make a point that when we went to this new format of shortening the show up, as y'all remember, one of the common themes that we had in the old show when we were doing the separate news segment was the number of, A, abortion clinics that are shutting down in the country, and B, the number of instances where women are either beaten up or killed for refusing to have abortions, and the number of instances where sexual predators are preying on girls and then using abortion to cover it up. And we were having at least one or two of these stories every month, as y'all remember. And it almost got repetitive. You know, you say, okay, yeah, let's hear the story who had sex with a 12-year-old this month and covered it up with abortion. And I want to make sure people understand that just because we're not doing those stories every show now, those things are still going on. Just for example, just in the last couple of days, Colorado Springs, a guy named Tyler Hamilton was working as a security guard at Coronado High School. He's 28 years old. He was having sex with one of the girls. They didn't identify her or how old she was. They just said she was under 15. He had been giving her the morning after pill. He'd have sex with her, and he was afraid she might be pregnant. And he was getting the morning after pill for her. And then a couple of times she did get pregnant, and he made appointments for her at abortion clinics. This is typical of what we're seeing.
It is typical of what we're seeing. And to go back to what you said at the very beginning, if you go to childpredators.com and go to actual cases, that's where you'll find a lot of these scenarios, things that have happened. Yeah.
Right. And continue to happen.
And continue.
That's the point we want to make, is just because you're not hearing about them on every Life Talk.
Right.
That doesn't mean they're not still going on. They're going on at the same rate they always went on.
And it's absolutely something that I think we need to, as a pro-life movement, constantly be rebuking the fact that people will say we need abortion because of cases of rape. That is the number one opportunity. I would say a lot of times it's the very first thing people will say is the reason we need abortion, but that's the number one opportunity for us to say that's actually the reason we don't need abortion. And then you send them to childpredators.com and you show them how abortion has enabled, you know, these rapists and pedophiles. Like, nobody loves abortion more than they do. And for some reason, I think we're a little bit squeamish about pointing that out to people, but the information on childpredator.com is right there. So, I mean, it's very easy just to send the link and rebuke that fact.
I know. And this girl was 11 years old. Do you know what he did to this little girl?
Oh, did they finally release her age?
Yes.
Because this report I said just under 15.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about at the time when the argument was to make Plan B or, you know, all these things over the counter, that this would be the greatest single thing that ever happened to sexually predatory males, bar none. That they went ahead and did it. And they did it in England first. And remember, we did a story on how the British government had done a study and found out that most of the Plan B was being bought by adult males to cover up the fact that they were having sex with little girls. And now we're seeing that this exact same thing is happening in the United States. We also had another similar story in Huntington, West Virginia. This guy got his own daughter, his own biological daughter, pregnant and forced her to have an abortion. And he pleaded guilty to it originally, but apparently this guy's not too bright. because he didn't realize that by pleading guilty to it that he was exposed then to going to prison. Now he's found out that he's going to go to prison, so he's trying to withdraw his plea. And it's questionable whether the court's going to let him do that.
Yeah, I hope they stick to the original charges.
Yeah, he's going to jail one way or the other. His wife, who's the girl's stepmom, so this is obviously not her biological child, is actually the one who arranged the abortions. And she faces up to 1 to 5 years in prison and a $3,000 fine. I still say she's every bit as guilty as he is.
Oh, absolutely.
She had an obligation to protect this child.
Yes.
And if he is having sex with this little girl, put him in prison, never let him out. Same with her, because she made it possible. She made it possible for this scumbag to do what he was doing.
And if she did it then, she's going to do it again.
But the main person here who made it possible is all the people who holler for legalized abortion, because this is legalized abortion is a get out of jail free card for pedophiles, and we're seeing this over and over again. So again, I just wanted to make sure people understood that we've had a couple of more abortion clinics closed this month. We're continuing to win the battle to shut these places down. And these issues like this are going on. We've also had some more instances of the stuff like you and I wrote in the report on violence of women being beat up or killed for refusing to have abortions. We just had another one the other day. And the atrocities that go on in the American abortion industry are unbelievable. And you and I are going to have another report out very shortly about the issue we've talked about before, about the number of women who get raped in abortion clinics.
Right.
And it's a really frightening thing that most people don't even know is going on.
Right.
But we've got tons of cases that we've already found.
Yes, we do.
And
we just need to go through them.
We just need to find time. We got so many things going on.
Sure do.
Of course, one of the things we've got going on, Renee, is the intel training.
Yes.
Teach people going undercover in the abortion industry. And a week from today, we'll be doing the first one.
That's right.
And the response we've gotten from this has been really, really neat. People are really excited about it.
Yeah.
But
we're continuously getting applications online or email too of people coming to our
future events.
Trainings. Yes.
We're going to do one every month.
Yes.
Obviously, the first one's already sold out. It's sold out almost instantly. And when I say sold out, I meant it's filled.
It's filled.
We're not charging anybody to go, so we're absorbing the cost of that.
Right.
But the second one is basically filled, and then we've already got people that are signing up for events out into August.
September.
Did we
As of yesterday.
Oh, we had one for September. Yes. Okay. Well, you're handling all the applications, but we've had some pro-aborts try to go. We've already been able to keep them out. We've had some people from the leftist media trying to go.
Yes.
We've kept them out. It's going to be good. But the neatest response we've gotten actually has been from the abortion industry. These people are melting down.
They are.
Over this issue.
Yes.
Because they know how vulnerable they are to it.
Right.
I still say, and I've never investigated one of these places without finding this to be the case, there's not an abortion clinic in this country that's not engaged in illegal activity, 100% of them.
Right.
And some of them, several illegal activities. And it's the cloak of darkness that protects them. And they know good and well their little buddies who they own lock, stock, and barrel in the secular media in this country are never going to report on them. So we've got to do that. And
that's a pretty telling thing that they feel like they have to get, their house in order, because really all we're saying is make sure you're doing stuff legally.
Right.
That's it. We're just going to bust you doing stuff illegally, which you're doing.
Right.
But the point is, they know they can't get their house in order.
Right.
By definition, you can't run a clean abortion lobby or abortion industry. It's like pornography and prostitution. You can't clean them up. By their nature, they're always going to be
full of unethical
people.
Yeah.
You can't. There's no right way to do a wrong thing, and that's what these people know.
Yeah.
They cannot clean it up. If they had to live by the same standards that a polite society or a civilized people live under, or even just the standards that the medical community lives under, they can't survive, and they know that. And that's what frightens them so much about this intel training that we're doing. And I'm really pumped about it. I think we're going to have a great
turnout.
Success. Well, we already got a great turnout.
Right.
Interesting here, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but some pro-life groups, Susan B. Anthony list for one, has noticed this. There have been, 5 or 6 Democratic debates between Sanders and Clinton so far. Not one question has been raised yet about abortion. Not one.
Right.
Because the media knows that the position that these two people take is not held by most American people, so they don't want to hear them say it. They do not want to hear him say it.
But I would say that it's not even just in the political spectrum. The best way to keep abortion legal is to keep it really kind of out of sight, out of mind,
right.
and to keep people from talking about it. Because once you start talking about it, it is so full of so many inconsistencies
right.
with, I think, kind of the moral fiber of most Americans that we just have to shut it down. If pro-lifers start talking, we either, shut them out, we get the media to totally block all of the videos that David Daleidens released, or even just speeches. When you hear pro-life people talking, like the newest form of protest, is just to shout over them, because they know as long as that information is being disseminated, we are going to be winning people over to our side.
Right. Well, I'm hoping that, let's just say for a moment, Hillary Clinton wins the Democratic nomination, and it comes down to her and whatever Republican wins, and then there's debates. Somebody in the media is going to have the courage to stand up and say, Miss Clinton, can you tell us one abortion, one circumstance under which a woman would want to have an abortion that you think should be prohibited by law? Let's say she's 8.5 months pregnant, and she just all of a sudden decided, I don't think I'm ready for this baby. Should she be allowed to have an abortion?
Right.
Force them to defend the flanks. Force them to defend the extremes. And this is what the media is not doing right now. I'm hoping that when the general election thing rolls around, somebody might have the courage to force them to ask that.
Right.
Because it's so strange to me that when you look at the statistics that are put out, even by the pro-abortion groups like Guttmacher, they show that the overwhelming majority of abortions in this country are done on women who simply say, I just don't want to be pregnant. It's not a hard case. I wasn't molested. I wasn't raped. I'm not a victim of incest. The baby doesn't have problems, and I don't have problems.
It's just not the right time.
I just don't want to have this baby.
Right.
But when you talk to most Americans, they'll say, well, I think it's a woman's choice. I don't want it to be used for birth control. They'll always kind of preface it with that. But do they really understand how often it is used for birth control?
But here's the point. Most of the stats show that less than 1% of all abortions are done on women who claim to have been raped, right? But when they go after the Republicans on abortion, that's the first thing they ask them. They don't say only 1% are done. They'll say, well, what about a woman who's raped? Okay, if you're going to make that the keystone argument that you're going to ask these people about when it only happens 1% of the time, why aren't you asking the Democrats the argument about why it happens 70% of the time, and do they approve of that, or 80% of the time? Do they approve of simply a woman saying, as you and I know, we talk to them all the time. They don't have a so-called hard case reason. They simply didn't want to be pregnant.
That's right.
That's all they say.
That's what they say.
And we talked to a ton of them. You talked to one just yesterday who had already had previous abortions.
Right.
And they know, they said, yeah, I know it's a baby. I know I'm taking a life, but I've got other things I want to do. Or my husband wants a bass boat, and we can't afford it right now if we have a baby. So,
right.
And we've literally had that told to us. So why aren't they asking those questions? And we know why they aren't, because the media is in bed with them. But somebody's going to have the courage to come along and confront these people on that.
That's right.
Whether it happens or not. Another thing that's interesting, and again, it should be being brought up in these debates, we've seen David Daleiden indicted, and the woman that helped him here in Texas. And there's a lot of people out there who are saying, wait a minute, doesn't the secular media do this sort of thing on a daily basis? Isn't this how investigative journalism is supposed to work? And some people on the pro-abortion side are starting to say this. Two Cornell University law professors, Sherry Cobb and Michael Dorff, published a piece on CNN's website when they called what happened here a stunning act of legal jujitsu. And they brought up the point. These are leftist pro-aborts. They brought up the point that if you can go after pro-lifers this way, then you're going to be able to go after animal rights people. You're going to be able to go after the climate change people. You're going to be able to go after all of them when they do the exact same thing, because they have been doing the exact same thing, been doing it for decades. And so, fortunately, I think the pro-aborts are shooting themselves in the foot on this deal, but we'll see.
Right.
Y'all saw, I guess, this disgraceful exhibition by Madeline Albright at a Hillary Clinton rally, where she literally said, that women who don't vote for Hillary Clinton are going to hell. quote, "There's a special place in hell for women who don't help out each other."
Because we're supposed to stick together.
Yeah.
Women are supposed to stick together, yeah.
No matter what.
Right.
So you vote for somebody strictly based on their gender.
That's right.
Right?
That's wrong.
Except for when your husband's, preying on those women and being a predator, you don't have to stick with those women.
Right.
So,
Like
let's
Bill
make
Clinton.
sure, let's make sure that Slick Willie still gets on.
Yeah. I mean, here's a man that forcibly raped women. We know of at least one case where we're not talking about statutory rape. We're not talking about, he tricked her into it. He forcibly raped Juanita Broderick. We know that. And yet, when all this came out, the Clinton machine started attacking those women, and one of the people in that Clinton machine was Hillary Clinton. And I think this is one reason that young women, even young leftist, Bernie Sanders, Marxist women, are rejecting Hillary Clinton because they're finding out about this for the first time. We all know it because we lived through it. But they're just finding out about it for the first time. They're like, wait a minute. Mm-hmm. Her husband raped women, and she attacked those women and called them names? Right. That's exactly.
Well, they have recorded footage of one of her first law cases where she was going up against prosecuting a woman. For some reason, it was she was claiming that a man had raped her, and they have audio of her kind of laughing it off. And obviously, it's not something she takes seriously. And so I'm not just going to blindly align myself with a woman because she has the same anatomy I do.
Right.
I'm going to use my brain, which is the best part of my anatomy, to make sure that I actually know if this person is pro-woman. And I think when it comes to Hillary Clinton, we know she's absolutely not. I am constantly disappointed by the radical feminist movement, but this is a case where I was really proud of it because there was quite a backlash and an outrage to Gloria Steinem and Madeline Albright making these comments and just saying, just because she's a female, I'm expected to vote for her. That goes against everything feminism actually stands for.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned Gloria Steinem. For those who may not know, she supported what Madeline Albright said originally, and then she made this moronic statement about why all these young girls are going to Bernie Sanders rather than Hillary Clinton, and she said because Bernie Sanders is attracting all of the boys, so these girls are going there just for these boys. Could you imagine? Could you even begin to imagine if some male politician, or just male, period, with a platform like Gloria Steinem has, came out and said that same thing? What would happen? I mean, it would fall in on him big time if some male were to say that. And it's utterly outrageous to suggest that these girls who are now, I think they're clearly delusional if they're supporting this Marxist. Old man.
I like Bernie Clinton. I like the character
Bernie
that
Clinton,
you just
yeah.
came up with, actually.
But they're supporting this Marxist because they're not politically sophisticated. They don't understand. Yeah. But to suggest that they're only doing it because that's where they can pick up boys, I mean, this is like out of the 50s or something.
Well, and for the record, I've seen some of the boys that like Bernie Sanders. They're dirty hippies, so you can do better.
Talking about pro-abortion outrages, Purdue University staff member offered that he was willing to rape pro-life women.
This was disgusting. So he was outraged by the fact that they were doing a thing on campus about
a pro-life event.
A pro-life event about the number of African-American women who are targeted by abortion. And so his retaliation for that was, well, I'll rape you and your mother and your grandmother, and I'll even charge for it if you like, was one of the
and
quotes.
Leave the police phone numbers.
Yeah, and he gave the number to the FBI and the police, but not Purdue University, which I thought was interesting, and basically said that, and then I'm sure once you've been raped, then we'll see how pro-life
Let me read
are.
you his exact quote. He claims that he was misunderstood originally. He says, quote, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. So let me make my intentions quite explicit. I did, in fact, offer to rape Tom." I don't know who Tom is, but I did, in fact, offer to rape Tom's wife, daughter, great-grandmother, free of charge even. I'm generous that way," unquote.
I think this was towards Students for Life. It was
Students for Life.
For Kristen Hawkins, though, her group.
Right.
Not Purdue University, right?
No, it was a pro-life group at Purdue.
Right.
So, yeah,
Okay.
it was a Students for Life chapter out there that
Okay.
was doing a big demonstration.
Okay.
Right. Now, he has since quit. But the interesting thing is that Purdue didn't fire him.
They weren't going to.
They weren't going
They
to.
were going to let him off as long as he apologized. This is what infuriates me.
It's unbelievable.
They said that they investigated it and didn't think that it was an actual threat. Like, what do you have to do to make it an actual threat?
Right.
And again, if it was a conservative who was saying that to a bunch of pro-choice feminist students, like, dude would have been burned at the stake. But again, it's this instance of us giving amnesty to any male who pushes for abortion, even in the most horrific misogynistic way. Suddenly, we're just, you know, completely compliant with it.
I'll tell you something we got to be worried about in the future politics. Chelsea Clinton is now coming out talking about how she left the Baptist church because of its pro-life.
And at 6 years old, she can make that choice.
At
that
6 years
decision.
old, she left the Baptist
Right.
church, and this is nonsense. This is
Yeah.
complete and utter
Right.
nonsense. But anyway, she's defending her mother and says, my mother is a very deeply person of faith.
I don't think so. Not when she has supported Planned Parenthood and fought hard
And abortion right up to the
for
moment
them.
of birth.
Yeah.
Well, I know the people who used to go up to Moloch, wasn't that his name, and put the baby, sacrifice
Yes.
it. They would be described as deeply
Faithful.
faithful.
Right.
They're willing to sacrifice their children to
Right.
a god. So
Right. And I've always found it interesting that all these leftist, Marxist, like now Chelsea Clinton, and unfortunately you feel bad, or I don't, or a little bit bad, I guess, picking on her because she never had a chance. She's the daughter of Bill and Hillary
from 6
Clinton.
years old, she was obviously indoctrinated. That's
Yeah.
what that told me.
Before 6,
Yeah,
I guarantee
yeah.
you. So, you know, you kind of have to say, well, she's a product of her environment, which we all are. You're a product of your environment, you are, and I am. So this poor woman never had a chance. But the fact is, we're going to have to look out for her in the future. I guarantee this girl has political aspirations, and that's part of this deal.
She is, and to your point about being kind of a product of your environment, I think that we also have to realize, like, when it comes to children, you know, I heard someone say this is the first 6-year-old they've ever come across who doesn't want to save babies. And the interesting thing, I don't know about you and how you've talked to your children or how you talked to Sheila when she was little about abortion, but with my kids, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just brainwashing them and giving them some talking points and making it extreme, because I always pictured, like, the kids out in front of Westboro Baptist Church who have the horrible signs, you know, and they're little children, and I just thought, like, I never want to be that parent who indoctrinates my child. So when I actually told my kids about abortion and what it was, because they know what I do and they're, you know, wanted to be involved, I explained it in probably the most, you know, unbiased way I could, and just said sometimes a woman gets pregnant, she wasn't planning on getting pregnant, maybe she's not married, maybe something's happened to her, but she's very scared, and so they go and they take the baby out of her body. And each one of my children at, you know, around 5 or 6 has said, well, what happens to the baby? And I'd say, well, I mean, the baby can't live outside of the mom's body, so the baby dies. And each one of them has had the same reaction of just complete horror and, like, how is this something that's legal and that's going on? And I think, you know, again, with Chelsea Clinton, like, how indoctrinated must she have been by 6 years old that she would say, oh, well, you know, good riddance, that, you know, that baby's not a human life, it has no value, and
I'm going to leave my church
I'm going to leave my church over this because gross, babies. What 6-year-old in the world would ever say that?
Let's take a few minutes to talk about this situation on the Superbowl ad. For people who didn't see it, Doritos had an ad in there where the woman is obviously very, very pregnant, and the doctor talks about how the baby's coming any day. So this is a 9-month baby, right? And the father's sitting there eating Doritos, and the mother says, can you believe he's sitting there eating Doritos?
What are you doing?
Right. And he starts waving the Dorito around, and the baby in the womb starts kind of grabbing for it and jumping for it. And it's kind of funny, and the baby's jumping around. And so finally he pulls it a long way, and the baby jumps out, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody hollers and screams. And, you know, I thought it was kind of clever, and I thought it was kind of cute. The pro-aborts melted down over this. They lost it. NARAL, National Abortion Rights Action League, Pro-Choice America, said the commercial, quote, humanized fetuses.
How about that?
Well, let me ask you this. They're talking about a baby, even if you don't believe they're humans at the moment of fertilization, which is biologically nonsense, but even if you don't believe that, they're talking about a baby here who is preparing to be born. Do we have to humanize that baby? Do we say that once it crosses that birth canal, now it's human, but 30 seconds earlier it wasn't? Is that what we're saying?
That's what they're saying.
That's exactly what they're saying.
Right.
This would be another one of those questions that I think Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders ought to be brought, you know, say, hey, look, there was this kind of humorous thing that happened in the Super Bowl. What do you think about that? I want to hear them defend their own people, the NARAL, NAF, Planned Parenthood types. And there were a lot of people online pro-aborts that said some absolutely horrific things about this and calling for a boycott of Doritos. Now, this has happened before. This is not a new thing. Several years ago, Volvo cars advertised themselves as the safest cars in the world and all this. And they had a commercial where they showed a pregnant woman driving one of their cars, and you could see the fetus. They superimposed a sonogram over her belly, and you could see the baby, and they were talking about protecting both of them. They pulled that ad real quick because they caught a lot of flack from that from these same people. And then there was a Valvoline commercial, Valvoline oil, where they showed a picture of an unborn baby, and it was obviously done through silicone graphics or something, and they showed the baby playing like he's driving a car and how you become a car nut even in the womb and so forth. They caught hell over that ad. These people cannot stand any argument that the unborn child at any stage of development is a living human being.
And the irony, though, is that they're showing their true colors, that they're not pro-choice. They're pro-abortion.
Right.
You know, that's clearly all this
Right.
is, because they also, right after that, Cosmo had a tweet where they were talking about the number of women in Texas. The pregnancy number had risen because of abortion clinics closing, and they put this frowny face. And all of these people were responding back, and they're like, but I mean, again, this isn't pro-choice. This is, you are so extremely pro-abortion that the thought of a woman choosing to carry a child to birth is so appalling and disgusting to you. And that's what I think. That's what the Doritos commercial. It was a stupid, funny commercial. We can never just let something funny be something funny. And that was what I was saying. Let chips be chips. Like, that's all it is. And it was a humorous thing. As a woman who has given birth to a child, I would actually say it maybe had the opposite effect on me, because the woman actually throws the bag of Doritos because she's mad at the husband, and then she goes into labor. Right. And I just thought, oh, that's terrible.
I don't know that she went into labor. The baby jumped out.
The baby jumped out to get the chips. And so to me, it was like a different reaction where I just thought, if anything, they were all like, maybe you should be a fan of this commercial. But it totally showed their true colors, that they are so anti-birth.
Right.
And people need to understand these are the extremists that you're aligning yourselves with.
Right.
I mean, they can't even take a joke. They are the typical stereotype of the angry feminist who just gets offended by absolutely everything.
Right.
Let chips be chips.
It's unbelievable, but it does show their colors. I got one final thing on this same subject, because we did this several years ago. Mattel introduced this doll. It's kind of like a Barbie doll, and it's called Midge and Baby. And when this came out, there was a big, I'm not into dolls, obviously, so I didn't know anything about this. Unless she'd have been on a motorcycle, I wouldn't have really cared. But anyway, it hit the news that Mattel had come out with this, and all these pro-abortion groups were raising a ruckus about it, because this little doll is pregnant, and you can remove her belly, and there's the baby inside, and then later on the baby's on the little bassinet here. And they went nuts over this, and they were attacking Mattel to the point that Mattel came out then a couple of days later and announced they were pulling all these off the shelf. The day that happened, we called out to the KB toy store in the mall here and asked them if they had any of them. And they had not yet gotten the thing to pull them off the shelf. And they said they had 8 or 10 of them. We went out and bought all of them. There were black women and white women. And over the years, we've given out all of them, except for this one. I've got one left, and I still have it. And
she has a wedding ring on her finger that they go crazy about as well. You can't see it on that because the box is closed, but
yeah, that was one of the things that was so interesting about this is that Mattel chose to put a wedding ring on this girl's finger, and they show her with a husband and another kid, and two other kids. And the lefties went berserk over this.
It's an extreme attack on motherhood and womanhood, really, because I think that's where we can't actually do anything that our bodies are capable of doing, this amazing superpower we have. Like, the second we acted out, because there was also another doll, I don't know if y'all remember that, it was for little girls, and it had like a breastfeeding patch, and so you could put this little pad on, and then the baby would pretend to nurse. And so it was for the moms who were kind of wanting to teach your daughters that this is this really cool thing versus the baby that always comes with the bottle that you feed.
Not only cool, but natural.
Natural.
Right.
People flipped out about it, and it's like, oh, that's right, because our boobs are for, selling chicken wings in cars.
Right.
God forbid that we actually use them for something that they're supposed to be doing. Like, to me, that's a feminist issue. Why are you attacking motherhood and womanhood and trying to make our bodies feel gross or abnormal for doing something that's
perfectly normal?
I don't remember
Pretty
that
awesome.
baby.
I don't either. I never heard of it.
It was a social media outrage because a bunch of people were up in arms about the fact that why would you teach your daughters to, don't you know they're for selling cars? I mean, like, that's the way I took it.
It's unbelievable.
Go to the Harley store.
They cannot, yeah, right, go to the Harley store. They cannot for 1 minute acknowledge that at any point during the gestational stage that it's a living human being. They cannot afford to do that because they know that the moment they do that, the whole abortion thing
starts to unravel.
It starts to unravel. And so we get back to what we've talked about here many times. It's the magic vagina, right? The baby's in the womb. It's just a glob of cells.
I actually have a punk band called Magic Vagina, though, if you guys ever want to
No, we
see
don't.
me
I'm not
at a
interested.
show. Okay.
But
Seriously?
But the second it goes through that, birth canal, now all of a sudden it's
It
a
just
living human
sprinkles human dust on them,
Right,
and then
some
they
kind of-
come out and they're a human being.
being. Right. It's weird how that works.
I mean, it's really miraculous
is.
how our magic vaginas work.
Right. It's amazing. Well, anyway, we're out of time.
Thank goodness. It was about time for that to end.
Right. It's about time. Thanks. Unfortunately, we are out of time. For daily news updates, go to prolifeamerica.com. Until next time, remember, Life Dynamics is not here to put up a good fight. We're here to win because winning is how this killing is going to stop.